Shalom, Akim Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to start off by giving our glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakwadash. And double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us this truth. A sincere shalom to the hopeful like this out there, listening, learning, and or teaching in truth and sincerity. Shalom. Hey, Akim, so I got this paper that I saw on a brother's comment board. You know, someone had mentioned in the comments. Basically, it's called the ISIS Papers. It's called the Keys to the Colors. All right, and it's very interesting. Because the brother Malcolm or the elder Malcolm was going into how these devils complain about white replacement, right? And so, that's something I kind of went into in a few videos a little bit, but I kind of wanted to go a little bit more in depth today because I saw this this source. It's called the ISIS Papers, The Key to the Colors by Francis Cress Welsing, MD, Third World Press, Chicago. Okay, so we're just going to go down and we're going to go ahead and grab where it talks about different symbols. Salaki, give me 1 second. I believe it's in page 61. Let's go ahead and pull it up real quick. It's a little bit further down, so just bear with me. Okay. Now, with every resource we get from the world, I always want to say, chew the meat, spit out the bones, okay. We filter everything through the scriptures, first and foremost, okay. Now, sometimes it is good to bring out these worldly sources because they can go a little bit in depth, and they're gonna back up what the scriptures already say, a lot of things that we already knew, okay. So we're gonna go ahead and start here in 5. It says the symbolism of Christ, the cross, the crucifix, the communion, and Christian holidays. It's page 61. And we're just going to read a little bit and get some precepts. Lord's will, this be edifying to the hopeful elect. It says, this essay is dedicated to all the black men who are in greater confinement, prisons, and jails, with the hope that they will be encouraged never to give up the struggle against white supremacy, domination, injustice, once they understand what the struggle is truly all about. And it says, Salaki, bear with me, brothers. Here we go. Then they never will return to jail, and their behavior will be anti-racist. A blind reaction to stress from ignorance. Okay, so let me just kind of skip down a little bit, okay, Akim, because it is a long read, and I just want to grab the main points. All right, so we're going to go to the next page. It says, the basic discussion of white genetic survival. Here we go. So the white genetic survival, okay? It says, through the possession and control of the black male's genital apparatus is carried forth unconsciously in the precepts and practices of the global white supremacy system's primary religion, Christianity. Okay, because remember, we always told you here at Great Millstone first, all right? And our apostles and elders have been saying this forever, all right? Christianity, so-called, is nothing more than so-called white supremacy, okay? It says, these fundamental concepts are manifested in Christianity's central pattern of symbols. In fact, it is in religious activity that the highest level of symbolic discussion emerges, whereas the testicles are those aspects of the male anatomy that contain the dominant genetic material, right? The sperm comes out of the testes, right? The penis is the aspect that transports the genetic material, which initiates the production of life and skin color. If one were to make a simple schematic diagram of the genetic organs of the male anatomy, that diagram might look like diagram 1, right? It's just a rudimentary drawing, right? Just to kind of give y'all the idea that she's going to go into next. All right, the next page says a further abstraction of the same drawing could be represented as in diagram 2, or if further abstracted, it could be represented simply as two lines, one vertical, the other horizontal, one crossing near the top of the other. See? So, y'all can see it right there. This is the Christian cross, and it does in fact look like, a man's genitals, right? Okay, so with that, we're going to keep going. It says, drawing abstractions of male genitalia, penis, and testicles, diagram 2. Highly abstracted line drawing of the male genitalia, the penis. All right, so let's skip down. The next page, it says, it is clear that diagram 3, a highly abstracted line drawing of the male genitalia is a cross, right? And I'm going to stop right there. A lot of you brothers and sisters know we don't worship the cross like the so-called Christians do. Okay, I want to grab some images here if I can. I believe it's here. All right, so in the so-called Christian church, you'll have people wearing necklaces with crosses on them. You'll have people putting crosses on the church, on their walls, in their house. All right, you got to remember, Yahushua was tortured on this. This is a torture device. Okay, we don't celebrate the death of Yahushua. We celebrate, Yahushua himself, right? The resurrection. He's coming back. Okay, basically, the so-called Christian church, this is one of their schemes. This is one of their devices, man. Just like all these phallic symbols you see. Let's get some phallic symbols, phallic buildings, for lack of a better word. The exact word is slipping my mind. All right, you can see these, but one that's a little less obvious is the obelisk. Let's see if I could find. Here we go. You see these in Washington, D.C. You see these worldwide. This is a penis. Okay. All right. Another example of these is a tie. Let's see what I got here. A bow tie, that's testicles, right? And a tie is a penis. Okay, so you can see. All right, this is the so-called white man, Esau. Okay, he's obsessed with genitalia. Okay, hey, y'all already know this man is a freak, but there's a deeper meaning to it. Okay, and that's what this book is going into. Okay, and I want to kind of keep going. Lord's will, I don't make this too long. It says, I submit that the cross is an important and provocative symbol in the white supremacy system culture is none other than a brain-computer distillate of the white collective's fear-induced obsession with the genitals of all non-white men, of black men in particular, right? Okay, so it's speaking about the Israelites. Okay, now watch this. Who have the potential to genetically annihilate the white race, you see? And this is, like she's saying, the so-called white race is obsessed with the fact that, our race will wipe them out. What does that sound like? That sounds like that white replacement theory that these so-called white people have today. Okay, it continues, who have the potential to genetically annihilate the white race. Furthermore, the cross represents the black male's genitals removed from the black male's body, meaning castrated genitals, right? Thus, the cross is a critical symbol in the thought process of the white supremacy system. Begin its evolution almost 2,000 years ago during early white aggression against blacks in Africa and Asia. This particular interpretation of the cross never has been given before. All right. Support for this interpretation may be found in the examination of the sword as a secondary critical symbol in the white supremacy culture, right? The sword, which the scripture says that Esau would rule by the sword, right? And that's how they rule today, is through that sword. Okay, but the sword itself, right? It does look like that, right? The Western sword. She says, here I am referring to the so-called Western sword with its straight blade in contrast to the Oriental sword, which is a curved blade. All right. Let's see here. Here we go. All right. I'm just going to skip down to get to the good bits. It says, in the white supremacy system culture, the monster is always the black male, e.g. King Kong. Right. You got King Kong. Hey, y'all can remember Donkey Kong Super Mario games, man. Where you had Donkey Kong the gorilla, right? And then you had the so-called white man Mario. Let's see if we can pull this shit up real quick. Fuck. It's always some bullshit, right? You can never find what you're looking for. Salakia. Donkey Kong Super Mario game. What was it called? What was the old one? Retro. Get the retro. This one right here, man. The original. Remember this? Alright. You got Donkey Kong kidnap the so-called white woman Peach, and Mario is supposed to go save her from Donkey Kong. Who does Donkey Kong represent? Right? It represents the so-called Negro. See, that's how the so-called white man thinks of our people. Like, we're the monsters, right? Because they're afraid of our people, because they know that our people, us Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latino, Native Americans, we are the most superior race. Okay, and the white race wouldn't be afraid of being replaced if they were truly the superior race. If they were the superior race, then, if everybody got a fair shot, then they'd be all right. But see, they have to nerf everybody and fuck everybody over because they're clearly not superior, man. They're clearly not superior. And this same racist rhetoric is used today, man. They call us monkeys and shit like that. So let's get back into it. It says, let's see, King Kong, and more specifically his white genetic annihilating genitals. As the white male, the knight moves to control the monster, black male genitalia. Indeed, he does become the defender of the forces of light against the forces of darkness. The Western world is shaped exactly as the cross, the brain-computer distillate of the male genitalia. In an article entitled Values, Myths, and Symbols, which appeared, let's see here. I'm just gonna skip through because I read a few pages, man, but I don't wanna bore y'all by reading 10 pages. We're just gonna grab what I found. We're gonna start right here. The white collective seems unable to decode their own symbolism completely. Their own translations of their major symbols and their analysis of their unconscious remains superficial, incoherent, and unconvincing. Therefore, the white collective remains unaware of itself and unpredictable to itself and to others who lack deep understanding. If my interpretation of the cross symbol is correct, that in the white male psyche it represents the black male genitalia in the context of the global white supremacy system, then it is possible to understand the portrayal of the white female in the popular book and film The Exorcist. Here, the female used the cross to masturbate herself when she was possessed by the devil, the black monster. You see, so that these movies and these video games and these different things are symbolic. Okay, and it shows you how the so-called white man thinks. Okay, it says this symbolic portrayal emerged during a time period in which increased numbers of white females were selecting black males as mates, right? Or more correctly stated, white females began sexually aggressing against socially powerless black males to gain possession of the black phallus, right? Because these so-called white women, they love Jake, man. Now they love Jake because Jake is ultimately more of a man than Esau. But the so-called white woman, you know, has remained loyal to some extent to her white man. But hey, it's coming to an end, man. You know, and the way it looks, you know, the so-called the Edomite had their women in submission for a while. Okay, but now these women are starting to go after Jake, right? Men of the other nations, but predominantly Jake. Okay, and what's happening to these the so-called white race now is said to be dying off because of a lack of breeding. You know, and it's like, how hard is it to just breed with your women? You see, but it's because you know, yeah, their fear is true. Their fear is that, you know, we are the superior race. You know, ultimately, in this same book, you could find where it talks about how the genetics of the so-called white man are recessive, something along them lines, and it says that the black man's genes are dominant, and so that's what they're saying, right? And their interpretation of that is, or not their interpretation of it, but yeah, basically what they mean by that is that they believe, you know, if they don't get rid of Jake, if they don't oppress Jake or keep Jake down, that ultimately they will outbreed the Edomites, okay, and even take their women from them. So the so-called white man is terrified of Jake, man. Okay, because ultimately this fear comes from a deep truth that Esau knows, and it's in the scriptures. This is Genesis 25 and 23. And Yahweh said unto her, two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Right? The one people shall be stronger than the other. Right? And that's Jake. Jake is ultimately the stronger race. And so in order for Esau to keep his power, he feels like he needs to oppress the hell out of Jake and keep Jake in the most lowest state, because if he doesn't do that, then Jake will take his woman, right? And let's see here. Give me 1 second. See if I could kind of keep going. So like I had to plug that in. It says the use of the cross as a symbolic object in white female masturbation also occurred when a large number of white females actively were fantasizing about being raped by black males and were establishing organizations and societies to prevent it. This was a reaction formation to their own unconscious desires. The white females' preoccupation with writing books on being raped also occurred during this time period. In the white supremacy culture, the historic symbol of the rapist of white females is the black male. The white female, until recently, has been held back in her sexual desires of the black male by white male constraint. Since white female liberation has been granted to white women in small measure, the white female finds herself unable to hold her own desires and aggression in check. Still, she is unable to admit these desires and aggressions consciously. Right, she can't consciously say that they prefer black men to their own men, right? Because then their whole race would disown them. These women know how racist their own people are. All right, so they want to keep being part of the group, so they got to play their little racist game. But a lot of these Edomite women, you know, will even disown their own parents to get with a Jake. You see, I want to love who I want to love. You know, you know, certain quotes I might have heard on the internet from these Edomite women. But it says, it is common knowledge that the ideal male for the white female is tall, dark, and handsome. Right? Where have you heard that before? We've heard that growing up, man. All right? These so-called white women, they love the man tall, dark, and handsome. Interestingly, following The Exorcist, the movie King Kong became a major focus of attention in 1976. The entire movie suggests an impending sexual attack on the white female by a giant black ape, the symbol of the black male. Finally, the black ape is shot dead by white males. The gun is also a phallic symbol in the white supremacy culture. At yet another level of the white supremacy cultural dynamic, white females, let's see here. Here we go. This is the main one I wanted to get. It's very interesting. We're going to start up here and then we'll close out. We'll get some precepts and close out. It says, this discussion of the cross as a symbol of the black male genitalia in the context of the white supremacy system culture would not be complete without noting that some of the most outspoken and aggressive white male and female members of the white supremacy system refer to themselves as the Ku Klux Klan. Since the determination of formal enslavement of blacks, the Klan openly has espoused white genetic purity, right? Going back to that phallic symbol, and survival via the castration, lynching, and killing of black men. See, they castrate them. Why? Because they're afraid of the black man reproducing using their women, right? And the killing of black men. The historic symbol for this group in the white supremacy culture is the cross. You see? Going back to what we read earlier. And more specifically, the burning cross. After black men were lynched and castrated, they often were burned, thereby reinforcing the interpretation that the cross symbolically is tied to the black male's genitalia, and that the burning cross is the burning black male and his genitals. You see? So basically saying, the destruction of Jake off the earth. Okay, because they're so afraid of our people, knowing our people are just greater. Our people are just better, man. Okay, it says when the black male genitalia with the dominant black genes are burned, cut off, or otherwise destroyed, white genetic survival is assured. So the survival of the so-called white race depends on the destruction of the genetics of the Israelites. You see, so in their mind, we are a threat to their survival. You see? And I think that's pretty much all I was going to go into today. Here, we're going to read the rest of this and finish up. It says, Salakia, it says, had the following words placed on the cross. In this sign you will conquer. Indeed, by controlling the black, non-white male genitals, which the cross symbolizes, whites have conquered blacks and the entire non-white world majority. Currently, the majority membership of Christian churches is non-white, and all are held in control under the sign of the cross. The authority is maintained by whites under white supremacy, white purity, and white survival, right? So basically, just summarizing these pages, I know I kind of skimmed through it, and Salaki for that, but I really didn't have a whole lot of time. Just getting the main point is, the male genitals of the so-called, of the Israelites, basically, because, they're attacking the so-called Negroes. But really, it's about all the tribes. As you can see, they're castrating so-called Latinos right now in these ICE concentration camps. So it's about all 12 tribes, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, okay, which are who? The Israelites, okay? And so the Edomites, they are afraid of our people because our people are the stronger nation. They're the stronger people, okay? And like the scripture says, ultimately, what? It says, I'm going to read it again. Genesis 25:23. And Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other, and the elder, which is Esau, shall serve the younger, right? At the end of the day, when all is said and done, all right, we're going to rule over the Edomites, right? We're the stronger people. We're the more moral people. We're more spiritual. We're just better in every way. And that's just what it is, man. But these Edomites know it. Subconsciously, they know it. And the fact that they have dominance right now, they don't want to lose that dominance. They don't want to lose their survival because they know how wicked they are. And if we ever came in power, they would be fucked. Okay? And this conspiracy that they have against us is written in Psalms the 83rd chapter. This is Psalms 83:1. Keep not thou silence, O power. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. Right? They're making a tumult. They're making a loud noise. Okay? Verse 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Who are the hidden ones? The Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians. Okay, we are the people of the Lord. And see how these enemies are not just our enemies, they're the enemies of the Lord, as it says in Psalms 83:2. For lo, thine enemies, right? Going down to verse 4, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more remembrance, right? So they try to make us forget that we were Israelites, right? So that we would stop following the laws of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. That's why there's all this idol worship and all these celebrities and all these rappers and all this influence, okay? Because as long as they can keep us from serving our power, Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, well, guess what? They can cut us off from being a nation, right? So these Edomites are against us, but not just the Edomites, all these other nations, man, but especially Esau, right? It says here in verse 5, for they have consented together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, right? So there's a giant conspiracy where all these nations, and it's going to list them off right here. All these nations are against the Lord and against the Israelites, right? Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. And who's against us? Verse 6, the tabernacles of Edom, right? That's Esau, the so-called white man. And the Ishmaelites, right? These Arabs, so-called, of Moab, right? That's the Chinese, and the Hagarenes. Jabal and Ammon, Ammon being the Japanese, so-called, and Amalek, right? That's the so-called fake JEWs over there in the land of Israel, right? They're of the nation of Edom, but they are the head tribe, right? Amalek is the head tribe. That's why they're the first of the nations. These JEWs rule the world, right? The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, right? These are Hamites, so-called Africans, native Africans. Also, Ashur is also joined unto them, right? That's the Assyrians. It says, they have hope in the children of Lot, Selah. You see, so all these nations are against us, but who is the top enemy? The first one, the tabernacles of Edom, right? So him being the first one on the list shows you that they are leading this charge against our people to keep us down and out forever. And ultimately, they don't just want us to forget that we're Israelites. They want to completely wipe us out, man. Right? Because our absence is their survival in their mind. Now, of course, they still need Jake because, we're the salt of the earth. But they want to keep us in a very submissive, low level, man. And, ultimately, these devils, they have that perpetual hatred, man. Okay, because that's the way the Lord set it up, man. All right, this is Ezekiel 35:5. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee, right? So since these devils are hell-bent on destroying our people, to the point where it's in all their symbolism, right? You got the KKK with the burning crosses, which represents burning the male genetic material, basically destroying our race, right? That's what these devils celebrate. And so ultimately, since they have continued to attack our people for no reason, right? They had us in slavery already. We built up their kingdom. And then they continue to attack us to this day. You got these ICE raids, the Southern Kingdom in poverty, right? Also being attacked by ICE, all right? Constantly being oppressed. All of our people being oppressed, man. Hey, the Lord is gonna shed the blood of these Edomites, man. All right, because even the way they make it hard for us to get a job, man. Hey, a man's job, hey, that's his bread, man. The scripture says that he that deprives a laborer of his hire is a bloodshedder, right? See, so they create a system where our blood is shed through the pen and through the sword, man. Through the stroke of their pen, they cause a lot of our people to be put to death and go homeless. You see, as the scriptures say, our people are led as a flock to the slaughter. You see, the whole system is set up for Jake to end up on the street because it ensures their survival. Now they're terrified because of the white replacement, so-called. Right? Yeah, man. And that's what's happening. Let's grab a few of these. I already showed you the phallic symbols. One point I did want to bring out, man. This is why we do not worship Jesus, man, because Jesus is an idol. It's a so-called white man, and of course it goes back to Zeus, because that fucking white supremacy goes all the way back. You had the Greco-Roman Empire, or Salakia, the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire. Okay, but this false idol right here is just a Greco-Roman idol, because it goes all the way back to Zeus. That's why if you go to the 1611 Bible, before the letter J was invented, it's Jesus. That's how you say the name Jesus back then. Okay? And if you say it in Spanish, it literally sounds like you're saying hail, and then, there, you can see the name there. Okay? So, this Christianity, this is more reason for you brothers and sisters out there to understand you cannot just be a Christian. You cannot say, well, we read the same Bible, we pray to the same God. No, we don't pray to the same God. You're praying to the God of white supremacy. The God that hates Yahweh Bashem Shai. Because Yahweh Bashem Shai ultimately is a so-called black man, according to the Bible. So if we really follow the Bible all the way through and through, this has no place in the Bible. This has no place in the Bible, man. All right, yeah, it's a part of history that the Lord was crucified, but we don't worship a cross, a phallic symbol, and we don't worship a so-called white man. And we don't follow the so-called white man's ways, dressing like him, acting like him, following his ways, being a part of this system and loving this fucking system, man. This system is created to destroy Jake, to keep Jake down, man. You see? But yeah, man, that's for now, that's pretty much all I wanted to go into. I pray that lesson was edifying to the hopeful elect. I might make a part 2 to this later, but just something quick. I want to finish by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Chakurash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us this truth. A sincere shalom to the hopeful elect, listening, learning. I pray that was edifying. Shalom.